first rodeo. Here we go. Scott Orlin with Cinema Magazine. I'm here in New York with a famous actor, at least that's what he just whispered to me.
Yes.
Colin Farrell for the new movie.
It's usually how I enter a room.
Fantastic Beasts. Let me just talk about entering the world of J.K. Rowling. I mean, obviously the Harry Potter world existed before. How much were you familiar with this world that she has created?
I mean, I was familiar with it through the films. My sister read the books. I never read any of the books, but I was a fan of the films. I saw each and every one of them in the cinema. I was a paying customer, and I mean, they're just so transporting. You know, instantly, you're just instantly dropped into a world where anything is possible, where common convention is cast aside, and it's a very intoxicating place as an audience member to exist within for the 2 or 2.5 hours. And one would hope, you know, that this film will exist in a similar place. But as an actor then to go into that world, you know, sometimes it kind of bursts your bubble when you see the fourth wall broken or you see behind the curtain, you know, and you see how things are done, but not the case in this. It was still pretty magic because the sets and the costumes, and because it was set in 1926 in New York, you know, there were certain scenes where, I was saying earlier, they built 2 or 3 blocks of Midtown Manhattan in 1926. Shop fronts, but the shop fronts weren't just fronts. You could walk into the shop and they had all the products, whether it was typewriters, spare parts for bicycles, cans of soup, whatever it may be. And then they had a tram system built, 20 Ford Model Ts from the 20s, 500 extras all in period clothing, and somebody would scream action, and all of that would just come to life in a body of steam and movement and horns and the clicking of the tram on the tracks. I mean, it was extraordinary to be a part of that. So even the process of doing it was magic.
But let me ask you about magic, because obviously in films where you played a police officer, there's a technical assistant sometimes to give you the nuances.
How do you get hard with
holding the wand? Is there a technique or something?
You
have to hold the wand this way.
The wand wrangler?
Yes.
Yes, the wizard specialist. No, there was no one. So you're just, do you know what, you're going off those who have come before you, those who've tread the path before you. So, I mean, I did dip in and just to reacquaint myself with the energy of the Potter universe. I watched not all of the films, but because I literally hadn't got time, because I found out I was doing the job pretty quick. A really short amount of time between finding out and actually starting the film. So, but I watched a few of the Potter films just to get in touch with the world and the sensibility of it again. But then you're in a sandbox, man, and you're just playing, you know.
So over the course of your life, you've probably traveled to some interesting exotic locations. What's the most fantastical beast you've ever encountered?
The most fantastical beast I've ever encountered.
Strangest animal?
I think I saw what looked to me like a scarab beetle in Morocco once. I can't be sure because I think I was pretty lit at the time, but I remember this very dark, very large, looked like a scarab beetle, and that just blew my mind. I don't know why, but it just did.
And over the course of your career, I mean, you've obviously inhabited many different characters. When is it the most obvious this isn't you? When do you play a character that obviously this is the biggest leap of faith for you as a person?
I don't know. I mean, there are certain parallels you can draw on some characters.
Is there a little that engraves in you? I mean,
I can be pretty single-minded. You know, I can be fairly single-minded. If I get my mind onto something to the point of obsession, I can, like Graves can a little bit. I mean, he may have more control. He may be more pragmatic with his obsessive aspects than I would be. But I don't know. You always try and see a distance and then shorten the distance through the bridge of creativity or imagination. You know what I mean? You approach the work initially from an objective perspective, and then through the process of whether it's rehearsal or thinking or writing about it or researching, it begins to become more and more subjective and more subjective.
Well, obviously, as always, Colin.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Terrific performance, and this is Scott Orlin. Until next time.
Bye, guys.
Did you pan down?